Hi, I'm Ferg, Daphne's husband and tech geek. I'm pleased to let you know that Daphne's blanket books, her blanket patterns, including this one, and over 50 knitting stitch patterns are now available for free download. There are full details on how to get them at the end of this video. So it's now on with the tutorial. Welcome to this tutorial video. The tutorial is for Daphne's baby blanket pattern that she has titled I Saw Three Ships. The blanket features the foaming waves stitch pattern and has a motif of 3 sailing boats across one end.
This blanket, I Saw Three Ships, is a combination of 2 of my previous blankets. The body of the blanket is knitted in foaming waves pattern, which is in the Charlotte blanket, and these little ship motifs are from Sailing to Dreamland. I love being able to reuse patterns that I have created in the past and give them a whole new life. This version I knitted to the size to make a cot blanket, but if you just increase the number of times you repeat the foaming wave stitch, you can make it into a single bed blanket quite easily. These 2 blankets are basically the same pattern. This small one, which is very good for a car capsule or a pram, is knitted in 4-ply. This one is knitted in 12-ply. And it's perfect for a cot. The small one here I knitted in yellow and white. The large one has 3 blues, a pale blue, a very dark blue and a mid blue. The mid blue is the main colour for this blanket. Here are the 2 pages that show you how to knit this lovely blanket. This part here shows you how to do the stitch called foaming waves. That's the main body of the blanket. This one shows you how to do the little ships motif. This replaces the sheep motif that was on the Charlotte blanket. And this part down here shows you how to do the border to work a picot edge around the whole blanket. To demonstrate how to knit the foaming wave stitch, I will use the video I recorded previously for the Charlotte blanket. It's quite an easy pattern. It's a 12 stitch repeat pattern, and there's also 12 rows in the pattern. Now let's look at the pattern. The first stitch is always just slipped. That gives a nice neat edge. The second one is just 1 to get going. Now this is where the pattern starts, the 12 stitch pattern. Knit 2 together, knit another 2 together, yarn forward, knit 1, yarn forward, knit a second one, yarn forward, knit a third one, yarn forward. Now we have FSSK, slip, slip, knit. This is exactly a mirror image of knit 2 together. So here we go again, slip, slip, knit. Knit 1, and that's the end of the 12 stitch pattern. So we do it all over again. Knit 2 together, knit 2 together, yarn forward, knit 1, yarn forward, knit 2, yarn forward, knit 3, yarn forward, SSK, slip, slip, knit, slip, slip, knit, knit 1, and that's the 12 stitch pattern done again. It's always good to use markers like this, because if ever you make a mistake, the mistake will be kept within those 12 stitches. It won't flow on to the other stitches beyond. So nice small markers you need, they don't get in your way too much. There's that SSK, SSK, knit 1, and there's another 12 stitches completed. This is the end of the pattern row. yarn forward, SSK, slip, slip, knit, knit one. That's the end of the pattern, and there's an extra one there because that's the one we're going to slip when we come back. That row is done 4 times to make the pattern. Each pattern row is followed by a purl row. So you have 4 rows of pattern interspersed with purl rows. When you come to the end of the purl row, it's important to carry the white yarn, the secondary colour, up the side and knit it in. So slip it over the top of the needle, then purl those 2 together to give you a nice neat edge. The top of the foaming waves are 4 rows of knit. I've done 2 rows of knit. Now the 3rd row we're going to catch the yellow in to bring it up the side. So slip the first stitch, then when you get ready to knit the 2nd stitch, bring the yellow up and over your needles like that, and then knit the 2 together. And that will leave this one pointing out to the edge of your knitting, so when you come back it's ready to go. Well, that was the last row of the foaming waves, so I no longer need the stitch markers. Now that we're finished with the foaming waves, let's move on to the ribbon eyelet stitch. It's used twice in this blanket. Once again, I'll demonstrate how to knit the stitch using a video I recorded previously for the blanket Charlotte. Slip 1, knit 2 together, get in there, yarn forward, knit 2 together, yarn forward, knit 2 together, and keep going until you get to the last 2 stitches, which you will just knit instead of knitting 2 together. Quite simple. Yarn forward, knit 2 together, yarn forward. That's all there is to it. The original boat was knitted in 4-ply. This is 12-ply. I've just modified the boat just a little bit to make it suitable for this big cot blanket. There are 3 repeats of the pattern. 1, 2, 3. But there are 12 extra stitches on each end. Make sure you mark the beginning and end of each repeat. The first row for this pattern actually begins on row 11 of the original pattern. That's because on the original pattern there was a lot more water underneath, but I didn't want that here. The first row has that little wriggly bit under each boat, but if you'd like a continuous wriggle, on row 11, instead of doing knit 6, purl 29, knit 6, just purl the whole row. And I think that might be nicer. To demonstrate how to knit this little yacht, I'll use the video that I recorded previously for the Sailing to Dreamland blanket. The yacht is picked out with these little yarn forward holes, which makes a lovely definite outline. Then we have, for the top of the hull, there's 3 rows of reverse stocking stitch, and for the bottom of the sails there's 2 rows of reverse stocking stitch, and in between it's stocking stitch for the air in between the deck and the sails. Now the mast rises in the deck, and it's done with a twisted stitch all the way up there, and it's in a channel of 1 reverse stocking stitch on each side. The twisted stitch continues 4 rows above the top of the sails, so you've got somewhere to hang your flag. This strong line that goes to the left on the sail and the hull is made by yarn forward SSK, and SSK is slip, slip, knit. Here is the yarn forward SSK. Yarn forward, slip one knitwise, slip another one knitwise, then knit the two together through the back of the loop. Then continue knitting. The right sloping shape is made by knit two together, yarn forward. Here we are with knit two together, yarn forward to make the new stitch, and continue knitting. Here is the mast. Purl one, the twisted stitch into the back of the loop, purl one, and there's the mast on the right side of the work. Here is the mast on the wrong side of the work. Knit one. Now we're going to purl one through the back of the loop. Knit one. I think this picot edge finishes off the blanket beautifully. On the long sides of the blanket, we're doing one double crochet into every second row of knitting. But because we slipped the first stitch in each row, there's actually only one stitch right on the edge, but it's actually 2 rows of knitting. So it's 2, 3, 4, 5. That's quite easy, isn't it? Then we're up to our next little bump. Now across the short beginning end and the finishing end, it's a different pattern with the double crochets. It's still 5, but we spread them out a bit. And we're going into, this is the cast on edge, so one into the first stitch, one into the second cast on stitch. Now we miss one stitch, go into the next stitch, that makes 4, miss one stitch, and there's the 5th one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, chain, tie it off. Now we'll do that again. It's 1, 2 into those 2 stitches, miss one stitch, 3, 4, miss one stitch, 5, and we're up to the next little bump. 2, 3, 4, 5, and tie it off into the first chain. When finishing off this edge that has the white yarn carried up the side and the blue yarn carried across the white bit, make sure you catch both colours together when you do the double crochet, so you're actually tying the 2 colours together to make a nice neat finish. And the picot edge just finishes it off beautifully. Now all boats need a nice jaunty flag on the top of the mast. We do this by just sewing it on. I'll just start the flag just up the mast there. do a sloping stitch. Now I'll come down the mast a little and do another stitch a little bit longer. And come down the mast for a third stitch. And a fourth stitch. I'll make this fourth one go up, so you've got a nice little tail flying up on the flag in the breeze. And now I'll finish off where it's tethered to the mast with just one stitch like that to make it neat. There we are, one nice little flag. Blocking is very important as the finishing touch to make your blanket even more beautiful. It needs to be stretched out so that you even out the foaming waves and make it the same width as the banner that has the little ships on it. Pin the blanket and then wet it. I usually use an atomizer to mist it. The blanket should be wet, so wet that it takes a couple of days to completely dry. I've knitted this blanket to fit a cot, but if you knitted more rows for the foaming waves pattern, you could quite easily make a single bed blanket. Beautiful either way.
We hope that, like Teddy and Panda, you really enjoy this beautiful baby blanket. Daphne's pattern books, blanket patterns, and patterns for more than 50 knitting stitches are available as free downloads. To get a free download, send an email to knitwithdaphne@gmail.com and include the subject Free Download. There is no need for any content in the email, and then send the email. You will receive an automatic response to your email that includes the link to access Google Cloud. Here you will be able to download the PDF pattern file.